Well, that was certainly interesting. That was certainly an interesting hearing. I think what we learned today is that despite warnings from the various experts in the industry, PJM, Rate Counsel, that despite the warnings that this failed energy policy from the administration and the Democrat-controlled legislature, despite this failed policy, that now, over the years, despite the warnings, rates are going up, and they're going up in large numbers, and our residents are going to feel it. And while the Democrats would like to put the blame on everybody else but themselves, the fact of the matter is they've had control of this State House for 8 years now, complete control, and the policies that they've implemented, moving New Jersey to complete electrification in a short period of time, has increased demand, and unfortunately, as the demand increased, the supply side couldn't keep up. And now we're being forced to purchase our energy off the grid at a much higher rate. You can't have policies that prevent people from investing in natural gas, a clean, low-cost energy source that we've had here in New Jersey. You can't lose that source of energy and go to a complete renewable system and expect to have lower energy costs. In fact, the concern is so great that you heard PJM say today that we could face potential brownouts this summer, like California, and that's a result of this administration trying to make New Jersey the California of the East Coast. We don't want that. And you heard the Rate Counsel just at the very end here say that if these energy prices go so high that people have to start making decisions, that it could result in impacting seriously people's health. And that's not where New Jersey needs to be, not when these warnings have been given over the last 5 years, not just by the Republicans, but by the folks that deal with these industries every day. And I think we are going to see now, hopefully, that we'll get a more balanced portfolio, which we've been advocating for years now. And if we do that and we create the generation that we need with low energy costs, it'll certainly put New Jersey in a much better position for lower energy rates. So, Mike?
I have a little something for you, Anthony.
Go ahead.
Sorry, come on.
So Leader Bucco said a whole lot, and we heard a lot of testimony today. We were sounding the alarm, and I find it really interesting that those on the other side of the aisle from us say that we're making energy a political issue when they politicized energy via Governor Murphy's Energy Master Plan since I've been in office in December of 2019. So many of us saw what is happening today coming from a mile away. We called the Energy Master Plan the Energy Disaster Plan. We knew that going all in on offshore wind was a really bad idea. We knew that we needed to diversify our energy portfolio. We knew that natural gas comprises 50% of our energy portfolio. We knew that 40% of our energy comes from nuclear. But what did we do? We went with really bad, expensive, intermittent forms of energy that, by the way, was going to be placed on the backs of the taxpayers and the ratepayers of the state of New Jersey. That is just bad policy. We were warned by the ratepayer advocate. We were warned by experts in the industry. But make no mistake, Leader Bucco already said this. Governor Murphy and all of the members of his cabinet promised every single New Jerseyan that they would make New Jersey the California of the East Coast. Well, folks, here it is. The chickens have come home to roost. And in this summer, we should be very fearful of our seniors who may not be able to afford their medication so that they can afford to cool their homes. we should be very mindful of the fact that people are going to alter how they spend their money on groceries, whether they're able to enjoy the wonderful New Jersey shore, and how are they going to be able to afford to stay in the great state of New Jersey. We have an awful outpouring of people moving out of our state year in and year out. This isn't helping that. And who are the most mobile people? The most mobile people in the state of New Jersey are our wealthiest people. The folks who are going to be left here footing the bill are those who are struggling day in and day out to put food on their table. And these rising energy costs are going to make it harder and harder for people not only to thrive in the state of New Jersey, just merely to survive. Thank you.
In the fall, we were at PJM along with my mates from the Assembly Telecommunications Utilities Committee, and during that meeting, we were told by Asim, the fellow who handles this, the PJM's responsibility to our government, that we were importing 23 or 24% of the electrical energy that we needed because we weren't generating enough. Today, we found out that it's up to 35% that we're buying. So we're down to generating 65% of the energy that we need. I think that we had a great meeting today. I think that the majority is definitely in a position to start listening. We're in a very difficult position financially, and it's because we have to buy energy from another state. We need to hold them to their word today. I know that the chairman, who's obviously a member of the majority, is very open to the fact that they can't continue to kick this can down the road. So I think the guys did very well today, and I think we're going to come something good out of this.
Good afternoon. First off, I will say right out of the gate, I was a little disappointed that at the end, really the second half of the meeting, that half the room had emptied out on the dais. This issue is so important. I'm really shocked that we had about half a dozen members on the other side of the aisle actually leave early. Other things that I took from this and where I'm disappointed, I still don't feel that it's been acknowledged that it is the policies enacted by this governor that has caused this problem. The BPU in particular defended it. It's in writing that they've outlined the policies that make up the most painful parts of the Energy Master Plan, where they're still supporting it. When we talked about clean renewables being something like nuclear, they kind of sidestepped that one. They keep coming back to wind. They keep coming back to solar. And again, we said this multiple times. Nobody in that room is against alternative sources of energy. What we are against are taking reliable sources of energy, and we heard it in the room that nuclear is the highest with 95% reliability. Natural gas makes up by far the majority of the generation plants within our state that produce the most. And where we want to get to is not plans that stabilize prices, which is what they've been promoting, just stabilizing. We want to lower prices. So we're happy to make investments in things that provide more supply. Those supplies, though, have to have returns on investment. They can't be small things with a big price tag. We want to get behind nuclear energy. We want to get behind natural gas, and we do want a diversified portfolio, but we've got to move on the things that we can move on quickly and that will have a big return on investment. I'm not confident that we quite heard that today. I think the other side of the aisle is spending more time on trying to change the narrative rather than admitting where we're at and trying to get back to a state where we were supplying enough energy 8 years ago, and now we're buying it out of state. And ironically, we're buying it at coal-producing plants out of state, which really kind of goes against the whole green energy. Last thing I'll add, I want to make sure that all those listening understand, for the last 8 years, we've had a governor on one side of the aisle, we've had a Senate and an Assembly all on the same side of the aisle. They could have done the right thing. They've had full control. To blame the Republicans at this point is just grasping at straws. And even the federal policies they attacked today, for the last 4 years, they've had support at the federal level. To now bring in President Trump as part of the reason for the problems is just ridiculous. So thank you all for listening.
Well, I guess it's ironic that the term that would best describe today would be that they ignored the canary in the coal mine, right? For years, there were warnings that the path that they were going down was a wrong one for ratepayers in New Jersey. My district, the 10th Legislative District, has become engaged mainly because of the offshore wind issue. And the offshore wind issue is symbolic of what's happened throughout the state. It's ideological in nature. Energy and rate costs very clearly correlate to, what is the most efficient expenditure of dollars to get the most megawatt per hour out of that expenditure. And wind is a perfect example of where that's gone awry. It costs 10 times the cost of natural gas. It industrializes our oceans. It breaks a ton of rules and regulations that were put in on federal and state areas, whether that's protecting the North Atlantic right whale or digging through Island Beach State Park. They broke every single one of those components in an ideological quest. And they spent taxpayer dollars to do that in the process, all so that they could charge us more money at the end of the day. And that's symbolic of everything. Now we need a real course correction right here. We talked about some solutions today. I think the devil's going to be in the details as to what kind of an appetite the Democrats actually have to really fix this problem. There's some steps that they can take, but they have to move quickly to get shovels in the ground, to build new facilities, to enact legislation. And quite frankly, the governor can fix a lot of this too. We saw the lead time that it takes to build natural gas plants and other facilities. If he repeals Executive Order 100 and he repeals that quickly, we could have a course correction and cut down those timelines pretty quickly as well. So the real details will be what steps do they take to get out of this, and what real measures do they take, and how quickly do they enact them. Thanks.
Any questions?
It sounded like from testimony that this summer, in terms of both affordability and reliability with the brownouts that were mentioned, that the experts didn't think, experts and stakeholders didn't think that there was a clear way to address those issues by the time the summer rolls around. So what do you hope is done over the next several months so that the affordability is maximized, I guess?
Well, I hope that, number one, we find additional production here in the state to increase supply. And to the extent that we've got to buy energy off the grid, we need to be prepared to do that. They need to get a handle on what exactly they think, the BPU, we're going to need in terms of energy generation this summer. They have to start making estimates and putting pen to paper so that we make sure that we have a reliable source of energy, whether it's produced here or it's purchased off the grid. And they've got to work with PJM to make sure that we can, that we're in a position to deliver that energy to our residents. And that should be the number one priority of the administration starting yesterday. Because let me tell you, I said this out at the hearing, there's always this saying that New Jersey, the governor wants New Jersey to be California, the East Coast. Well, let me tell you, take a look at what Californians are going through, and we don't want to be in that position. And that's the position that this administration and the Democrat majority has put us in. And you heard today, which kind of scares me a little bit, is it seems like they're getting away from the wind energy, and they're now looking at the quickest way to bring things online will be solar, right, and battery storage. Well, let me tell you, what comes with that are huge subsidies, which will continue to increase the price of energy. So unless we can cut some of the red tape, eliminate some of the regulations to bring investors into New Jersey again for natural gas, open the pipelines, right, for natural gas, we're going to be in a real mess. And this is not going to go away easy. But they should be looking at that, and they should be looking at some of the small nuke plants that have been proposed. The Republican caucuses have legislation to promote that. They need a balanced portfolio. And to stick with complete renewables, which can't meet the demand today and will take years to bring online, is just misguided policy. Just misguided policy. Anybody else have?
I could add something. Go ahead, thanks. Yeah, just a quick thing to add. You know, I'm focused on what can we do really soon, right? A lot of what we just described, it's going to take a couple of years. It took 7+ to ruin this, to ruin the supply, right? But people's bills are high right now. We have legislation that we put forth that does things like eliminate sales tax on electric and gas. All right, everybody who pays a bill actually pays sales tax on that bill as well, right? Eliminate the utilities charging $15 a month for smart meters. That's $180 a year, right? Stop letting the utilities pass through costs related to their administrative costs, for example, right? You know, that's their executives at the utilities. So these are things that ratepayers have to pay today. It's all in the bill, right? So I think there's some things we should be doing even more immediately to affect reduction of utility bills now, because they're just going to go up, and all those little things, and they are little things, could add up to some serious dollars. So I think there's things like that we also need to focus on.
We have to be honest, intellectually honest about what took place here to get us to this point. And for whatever reason, those on the other side of the aisle all of a sudden now want to say, hey, we can't make this a political issue. Yet they're the ones who are making it a political issue and blaming the Trump administration, which has been in office for less than 3 months, right? I mean, so it really is difficult to understand how they can't comprehend that under Biden's Green New Deal, coupled with Governor Murphy's Energy Master Plan, got us to this point. That's where we are in the state of New Jersey. And look, I'm not confident that we're going to be able to get new energy online very soon in the state of New Jersey. But what my constituents have been emailing and writing letters to my office about and calling my office regularly are this uptick in delivery charges, which really seems completely out of hand. And one of my constituents, for whatever reason, keeps all of their bills and took pictures of the same month last year to this year and said, why are these delivery charges here? This never appeared on my bill before. I think we also have to get the utility companies in here to find out why these delivery charges are so high. Because if we're able to limit the delivery charges that they're charging, I'm not really quite sure why that is. But, you know, they need to answer some questions from us as well, because you see the BPU has a mission statement there. They were supposed to be advocating for the ratepayer the entire time. What have they done? They've abandoned their mission. That's why I introduced legislation to dissolve the BPU, because guess what? They've been doing a horrible job in defending the ratepayers of the state of New Jersey. They certainly haven't provided any form of reliable energy. And you talk about solar, they admitted that's 8% efficiency rate. 8%. Why would we go all in on solar at 8% when we have nuclear, which is 95%, natural gas, which I'm told can be done in 2 years? They're telling us it's 5 to 7 years. Something is wrong. It's broken. We need to fix it.
I think the PJM has been a good partner throughout this process.
I'll let someone else answer. I don't want to take up all of the time. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Listen, PJM is an auction house. You know, I think that we need to do more homework as to exactly what the PJM process is. A very complicated process. Auctioning and partitioning generation throughout 13 states is nothing that comes very easy. As I said with my assembly mates here, you know, we were in the PJM facility. They seemed very forthright with us. You know, and they made it very clear that they don't benefit at all from the auction process. They get paid for the service that they provide. But there's clearly rules in the PJM auction that the majority wants to look at. Whether or not that has any merit, I'm an electrician. I'm not going to tell you if that process is right or not. We probably need to look into it and make sure that the ratepayers in New Jersey are not getting a raw deal. But as I said, the fellow who comes here from PJM is a guy who has been very forthright with us from the day we met him 6 months ago. But for anyone to say that PJM is responsible for our rates today is just foolish, and everything that we spoke about today and everything that we learned today supports that argument.
And PJM also was one of the agencies that sounded the alarms, you know, a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, for them to say that this was not foreseeable or predictable is baloney. It's just simple baloney. I mean, you know, we didn't just all of a sudden come up with these ideas, and, you know, we did our homework. We were listening to these folks tell us that this problem was coming. And we tried to get the administration and our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to have a course correction a few years ago. But we were ignored. You know, they really didn't believe that this was going to hit at a time that it has. And now it's hit right before an election, and, you know, the Democrat Party is concerned, and they should be.
And that's why you saw their memo.
Right. And that's why their memo says blame everybody else but ourselves.
And I have to support Assemblyman Kanitra when he said that it's an ideological effort. It's completely ideological. It has nothing to do with affordability or reliable power. It has nothing to do with anything but the ideology of wind energy.
And I'd go even further, and I'd say that the BPU admitted that today,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we asked the BPU flat out, what's more important, having the lowest rates possible or fulfilling your climate change goals? And the way she answered that, and then a couple questions later, she flat out said, we have to accomplish all our climate change goals.
Yeah.
And look, we all represent districts that we want clean, healthy environments, but how do we do that in an efficient way, and how do we do that in a market-driven way where we're not picking winners and losers arbitrarily and just throwing money at industries that can't financially support themselves just yet?
Perfectly stated.
Yeah, the BPU, the commissioners, they need to begin to look at, in their decision-making process, the costs associated with this stuff, right? I mean, because this whole thing about, well, we want clean energy, right? Everybody wants clean energy. But the fact of the matter is, right now, the position you've put us in is we're purchasing electricity off the grid that's coming from coal plants. So their whole mission is being wasted. Because the policy just doesn't make sense. It's too much, too fast, and nobody ever looked at the cost. There's a way that they could have phased this in over time, provided they didn't enact policies that made it difficult for people to come here and invest in natural gas, or they allowed the nuclear plants to continue to operate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All right, guys.
All right, just in time for me to get my call.
All right, you too.
I'm taking my wife out to dinner.
That's Saturday night.